All right. Good evening, everyone, once again. In our last class, we talked about introductions to computer. And in that class, we talked about different components of computer, like the CPU. We talked about the CPU, we talked about the motherboard, we talked about the hard drive and the storage, which is the hard drive, the hard drive and the solid state drive. Then we also talked about some networking aspects of computer. Then we ended it on the introductions to introduction to data center. Today we are starting the AWS proper, but as I told you guys earlier that we're going to be starting with cloud practitioner, which we don't normally do before we just start from solution architects. So the reason why we are starting from cloud practitioner is that I actually want people, especially those people that don't know anything about cloud, that this is their first time of attending cloud or anything IT related. So I want them to have a basic understanding. I also want everybody to have a basic understanding of the cloud so that by the time we finish the cloud practitioner, I want you to actually sit for the exam. Then after that, we go to solution architect, and anything we're going to be discussing in the solution architect, you will see that it's going to be a bit on what we have learned in cloud practitioner. So that is why I'm first introducing the cloud practitioner. So please pay attention very well, because majority of what we are going to be discussing here, we're still going to discuss them in the solution architect. But when we get to the solution architect, it's going to be a little bit more complex. So it's better when you understand the fundamental now before we move on to the solution architect. So cloud practitioner. Before we dive in deep into the cloud practitioner, let's take a minute to look at the modules that we're going to cover. We've done this one in our previous class, which is just the course overview and the objective of the course. Then today we're going to be looking at the introduction to AWS web services. Then, if time permits, we're also going to look at global infrastructure and reliability. Then in subsequent class, maybe on Saturday, we're going to be looking at compute in the cloud and networking, then also storage. Then after that, we're going to be looking at security in the cloud, then monitoring and analytics, then pricing and support. All of these modules, they are not really in depth into security, although into cloud solution architect. We are still going to cover all this module under solution architect. But the reason why we have to cover them here is just to get you familiar with each of the service that AWS provide for these services. So if you are going to do the AWS Cloud Practitioner, I'm going to share the AWS study guide. And the study guide, if you read the study guide, this is the objective, the domains for the Cloud Practitioner, which AWS specified that, okay, these are the area that you need to familiarize yourself with if you want to pass the solution, the Cloud Practitioner. And we're also going to be doing the same thing for solution architect and for the cloud security engineer as well. So the first module, introduction to Amazon Web Services. At the end of this introduction to Amazon Web Services, the objective of this module is for you to understand the 3 types of deployment models in AWS. Then you also, the other objective is to understand the advantage or the benefits of cloud computing. In exam, you might see it, or even in an interview, you might see it as somebody might ask you what are the advantages of AWS cloud computing, or they just ask you like what are the value proposition of AWS cloud. Whichever means they are still referring to the same thing. Somebody has actually asked me that question before in an interview. Say, what are the value proposition of migrating to the cloud? So what they are just asking you is, what is the benefit of using AWS cloud? And these are the topics that we are going to cover under this first topic, this module, Introduction to Cloud Services. We're going to look at the cloud deployment models. We're going to look at the benefits of cloud. Then we're going to test our knowledge. If I go back up a little bit, if you go to the practitioner, the objective, you will look at the value proposition is there. That is under AWS Cloud Concepts, what AWS asks you to know to pass that exam. Cloud practitioner value proposition, they don't call it benefits, they just say value proposition of the AWS cloud. It actually still means the same thing. Then you also see that we have the AWS well-architected framework. Then if you scroll down somewhere around there, you will see the cloud deployment models that AWS have. So this first module covers parts of the cloud practitioner exams. So the cloud deployment models. Before we start talking about cloud deployment models, it will be better for us to first take a moment back and discuss or recap what we learned in our last class, which is the client and servers relation. If you remember the relationship between client to server communication, when we're talking about computers, when one computer sends signal to another computer and they start communicating. For instance, let's say you have your laptop with you, and on your laptop, you open a browser, maybe Google Chrome or Firefox, and you type google.com, then you press enter. It spins up for some seconds and it displays the Google page to you. Or it might not be Google, it might be maybe your school website or your church website or the website or e-commerce like Amazon, like those of you that like to buy things online. When let's say you put amazon.com and you press enter and it spins up, it comes back with, it displays the resources, the items that you want to buy. What happened behind the scene is that there is a server somewhere that on that server, there are a lot of files and folders and images that they put on that server. And when this your system, this your laptop, when you press enter on this system, it sends a signal to that server somewhere, I don't know, but it's stored somewhere. It sends a signal to that server. That signal that it sent is what is referred to as request. It sent a request to the server. And when it sends that request, there are multiple things that goes along with the request. But we are not going to focus on those things that are part of that request. 1 minute. Somebody just entered now. Jason, can you identify yourself? Jason, okay.
Hello, that's okay. Okay.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. You're using a name that I didn't know. All right, sorry about that. So the message that goes from your laptop to that server is called request. We are still going to talk about that in depth later in the course. But the first stage here is that your laptop sends a request to that server. Then when the server takes that request, it looks at that request. Then for the request to be, for the communication to complete, the server is going to send back a message. And that message that is sending back is what is called a response. So this is the client to server communication, which means a device is serving as a client, and then another device is serving as a server. The device that is serving as a server is providing information or services to the device that is serving as a client. This concept is what cloud computing was built on. This is the concept of cloud computing. Cloud computing is, as I defined it the other time, delivery of cloud services or delivery of IT services over the internet. So if you look at these scenarios or these concepts, this is an example of that. Here, along this line, if this server here is not connected to the internet, if they are not in the same, maybe if they are not being owned by the same person and they are not connected together in one way or the other, if this server is in another person's cloud or another person's network or in a different network, then it has to go over the internet before it can communicate to this. So when this laptop, this server take that response, take that request and respond back, is providing a service over the internet. And this is the concept of cloud computing, the delivery of IT services over the internet. So what are the services that can be delivered over the internet? There are a lot of services that are delivered over the internet, and I believe today you have even used one of those services. If you have checked your email today, you have used a service over the internet. If for those of you that have Google Drive, you have used services over the internet. And for those of you that have e-commerce, maybe you have a website or you have an application or you have a business that you run. You can also use services over the internet if your server is not with you or you are hosting your resources with another company. You have used services over the internet. So examples of services that you can use over the internet, you can use a server over the internet. For instance, now, if I give you the IP address of my system, then I give you the username of my system, then also the password of my system, then maybe do some configuration on my firewall. Believe me, wherever you are, you will be able to access my system and use any of the resources I have on my system. That is also delivery of services over the internet. Maybe you don't have enough storage, and I do have enough storage, and you want to store some of your files on my system. Then when you, from your own laptop, you connect it to my laptop or you connect it to my system using the information I provide you, then that is you are using services over the internet. So these are the example of services that you can use over the internet. And down the line, we're going to look at the different categories of this service. These services, they are in different 3 categories. You have a situation whereby you are using a full server over the internet, and this server, you can even configure it. You can change things around. You can change the hard drive. You might like, oh, I don't want this hard drive, I want something else. Or you might specify that, okay, you don't want a particular operating system, you want to use another operating system. I believe by now, everybody in this class should know what an operating system is. Nelson said he can't hear me. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, to be inside. And this kind of message, if you want to send this another time, please don't send it direct to me. Send it to the general chat so that somebody can see it. If I don't check now, I won't know. I won't know that you are still, if you can't hear me, because I'm not checking the chat as I'm talking. So another method is when you're using Google Drive, that is another categories. And this category is what is referred to as platform as a service, but don't bother about that. When we get there, you understand it. And you can also use Gmail as a service, which is referred to as software as a service. So when we get to that area, we need to pause it. But what I want you to understand here now is just that cloud computing is the delivery, on-demand delivery of IT resources, services, or application over the internet. It can be resources, it can be service, it can be application, whichever means. It's just that you are having access to another person's resources or your own resources that is kept in another person's environment over the internet. So when we talk about cloud computing, I said earlier that cloud computing share the same structure as clients, or the same concept as client-server relationship. So if you look at here, this is a cloud computing. This is somewhere, someone's data center. For those of you that are in the first class, you understand what data center is by now. It's just a warehouse or a giant house where computers and computer devices are stored. So this is a very nice, well-arranged data center. So when I want to use this data center, maybe this data center has a server which I want to use, then I have to connect to this data center. You have to connect to the cloud services using your own system. There will always be a client that you are using to connect to the server. So from my own server now, and from my own laptop now, when I want to use any of the services that I want to use from the data center, I have to send a request. Then the services in the data center will send back a response. So with this definition now, I can use cloud services by hosting resources in the cloud. I can host resources in the cloud. I can store or back up my data in the cloud. And I can also connect to the cloud to use other services. So for the data centers, the responsibility of the data centers is to provide me all those services that I would have access to if I'm using my own personal data centers, such as the compute capacity, compute power, the storage solution, the networking, the database, security, and cloud migrations. All of these, we're still going to be discussing them. We're still going to discuss all of these in full details, even in this cloud practitioner and also in solution architect. So now, what are the advantages of cloud services over traditional on-premises? If you don't understand what on-prem is when you have your own data center in your own specific or physical location and you manage it by yourself. You are the one that buy all the servers. You are the one that do the configuration, the networkings. You You are responsible for everything. That is what they refer to as on-prem or on-premises. But if you are not managing all this and you are paying somebody to use their own data center, that is the cloud. So what is the advantages of cloud services over traditional data center or on-prem data center? The first one is that now, when you don't need a service, you don't provision it. Unlike traditional means of data center, you have to provision the service before you need it. Otherwise, you won't be able to use it. So,
excuse me, sir. It looks like some people are having a hard time logging into your class. At least 2 people are having a hard time logging in. Sorry for the interruption.
I'm not saying them.
I think one is Nelson and the other one is Chetachi. I'm seeing that. I think the Nelson text sent me a message, then I posted it on the chat, and then Chetachi also sent a message as well.
Oh, okay. I've seen Nelson. Sorry. Yeah, I can't see Chetachi.
Chetachi is here already. I'm just
she's
posting
here.
from the group chat,
Oh,
on
okay.
the Telegram chat, what they posted.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No problem.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I was not checking that. Thank you. So the first advantage is that unlike traditional data center, when let's say you have an idea now and you want to carry out the idea that you have, then if the idea has to do with online, maybe you have an idea to start selling, to have your own e-commerce, then you have to prepare. You have to buy that server. If you are managing it by yourself, you have to buy the server before anybody can even patronize you. That means you have to provision the resources. But in a situation, I mean, if you are using cloud, you don't create that resources. You only create it when you need it. So, the process of establishing a business is not just that you just wake up one day and you want to establish the business. It has to follow the process. When you are registering the business, when you are trying to do research and likes and things like that. And even when maybe you have a product, even by the time you finish producing the product, it still takes some time. You have to do a lot of marketing. So all those time, you can't be doing marketing if your website is not available. So you must have provisioned the website, you must have spent a lot of money before you start marketing your product. So what happens if you market your product and you don't see customer? Then your server is running, you are paying for it. So you can't turn it off, because if you turn it off, you don't know when the customer will come. So you have to leave it running. But when you're talking about cloud computing, you don't have to provision the server when you are still doing other things. And when you are not using it, you can actually shut down the server. And there is a lot of services nowadays in cloud computing that if nobody is using your website or your application, it's shut down automatically by itself. So, and when somebody is ready, or maybe somebody wants to use it, it's spin up again. So there's a lot of advantages in the cloud. And that first one is you create or you only provision cloud resources only when you need it. If you don't need it, you don't provision it. And if you provision something and you don't need it again, you can shut it down. If you buy a server on-prem, maybe because you think of an idea and you thought that, oh, this idea is going to boom, but unfortunately maybe a policy came up and you can't do that again, then the server is sitting down there, you can't use it. But then you have to sell it. And if you are selling it, you are not selling it with the amount that you buy it. You have to sell it at a cheaper price or at just a second hand compared to a cloud. If you don't need it again, just terminate it and nobody fights you for that. Then the second one is that you access services on demand. You access service when you need it. You don't have to provision down, just like the first one. You don't have to provision down. You access it anytime you need it. If you don't need it, you don't use it. So, and also, you only pay for what you use or what you provision. If you provision if you want to run an instance now, I mean, if you want to host a website, a very small website will be using a very low resources or small resources. That's why using that small resources, you can't go to the market and buy a resource that is extremely too low. For instance, for those of you that are using 4 gig RAM of laptop, it's running so slow, you can't run that kind of, you can't use that kind of server, I mean, that kind of laptop to run a website. So, but the actual resources that website is using is not even using up to that 4 gig. So that means that you are even buying, despite your laptop is slow, there are still some wasted capacity on the laptop that you are not using. So in an enterprise, you see people, or you see companies, employee provision a very large resources, and when we are migrating them to the cloud, we just wonder that why do they provision these huge resources for this very tiny application? Because they just want to make sure that when they need that capacity is available. And guess what? They may not need it, but they can't do anything about it because the capacity has to be there, and they are just wasting space and wasting money. Then also you have to avoid large upfront investments. If you compare cloud computing with share ride like Uber, if you are not going anywhere, you don't call Uber. Then you only call them when you are going somewhere. But if you buy your own car, then you have to spend some money ahead. Like you have to pay huge amount, especially if you buy it with cash, you have to pay huge amount to buy the car. That is upfront investment. Then that doesn't mean that every time you're going to be using the car might just be sitting down there for months if you don't have anywhere you're going. So all those things, those are what cloud computing came to solve. Those are the challenges that companies are having, because if a big company can carve out thousands of dollars for server, what about startup company? They can't do that. So those are the advantages of cloud computing. So when we talk about pay only for what you provisioned, if you don't provision, you don't pay for it. You don't pay for it. So you just establish the connection. You might sign an agreement that, okay, I create an AWS account. When I need the AWS account, I'm going to use it. Then when I use it, I pay for it. But if I don't use it, I don't pay for it. And also for the large, to avoid large upfront investment, if I'm using cloud now, I don't have to buy server because I don't need it anymore. I only need to pay for the time that I use AWS server. So instead of me coughing out a lot of money, I just have to cough out the little amount for the time that I used. So the first objective of cloud computing, is cloud deployment modules. The first one, there are 3 ways to deploy your resources or applications to the cloud. And this is what is referred to as the cloud deployment model. If you have your resources, you can have your resources in your own physical data center without going to the cloud. And that is what they refer to as traditional method or private data center. If you have your resources in your own private data center, or you have your own resources in your own private cloud, that is what they refer to as on-prem deployment. And the other people also refer to this on-prem deployment as private cloud. Then you have the cloud deployment, which is also referred to as public cloud. So this is when you don't manage the server. I mean, you don't manage the data center. You're now using another person's data center over the internet. So anytime you need it, you just log in into your account and you provision the resources. But if you don't need it, you shut it down, you close your account, and you don't pay for it. Then there is the third one, and this is what company uses most. I can tell you like 99% of company out there, let me just say 90% of company out there, this is what they practice. They have some resources in their own data center, and they are using some resources in the cloud. So this method is what is called hybrid deployment. That is, you use both of them. You use both the public cloud and the private, or use the public cloud and the on-prem. So this is very, very common. And when we get to solution architect, you can't say you are a very good solution architect if you don't know how to make use of these two resources, I mean, these two cloud methods together. You should be able to have resources on-prem and integrate that to the resources that you have in the cloud. When we get to cloud solution architects, we're going to be discussing all about that. But this is the most used deployment method out there. So on-prem refers to the traditional model of installing, operating software and other IT infrastructure within the physical premises. I already explained all of this, and this is what this is the main thing there. Using the organization's own hardware and resources. That means you are using your own resources. You are not paying for somebody to use their own. And this is also referred to as private cloud. Then we have the cloud-based deployment. The cloud-based deployment is when you are now paying somebody to use their services over the internet, and it's also referred to as the public cloud. These three that we are looking at now, they are not everything. There are still some other ones that we are not discussing here, because if you go to an exam like CISSP or CSSP, they added some other one to it, like community cloud and those one. But AWS are mainly cloud, the cloud provider, the major cloud provider. They only focus on this theory: the on-prem, public cloud, and hybrid. So when we are using public cloud, which is also referred to as cloud computing, there are multiple ways of deploying resources to the cloud. You can either create a new resources in the cloud, maybe just go to the cloud and create the resources there, or you can migrate the resources that you currently have on-prem. You migrate them to the cloud. And this is very, very common out there. That is why, as a solution architect, this is your #1 priority: how to migrate resources to the cloud. Because when customer comes to meet you, one, they already have resources. Most of the time, they call it legacy application. They already have an application that is running somewhere. Maybe the way the application is running is what they don't like, and they are contemplating of moving that application to the cloud. So that is where you come in as a cloud solution architect to help them look at the challenges that they are having currently with their application and help them to map it to the cloud. Like, okay, where is this application running on currently? If the application is running on a particular server, maybe a Windows operating system server in the cloud, on-prem. So now for you to move that applications to the cloud, then you also need to understand that what services do AWS provide that can serve as window, that can serve a window application on-prem, or that you can use to deploy window applications as it was deployed on-prem. So what services is that? So that is why solution architect, you need to have a good understanding of a lot of services on AWS cloud. Not only AWS, all the cloud, if you are a solution architect. So what we are discussing currently it's not specific to AWS, it's across the line. Either you are using GCP, you are using Azure, or you are using AWS. Whatever we are still discussing is still the same across board. We have not started talking about AWS specific services. Even by the time we get to AWS specific services, most of these services, they are the same across board. It's just the name that they give to it that is different. If you know something like called EC2 in AWS, you will also know VM machine in Azure. They are the same thing, it's just the name that is different. So way to manage applications in the cloud. Once this application is deployed to the cloud, how do you manage it? There are multiple ways. There are multiple ways of managing applications in the cloud. And these are the two common. Let me just say 2 ways of managing applications in the cloud. There is something called customer managed application. That is when you that provision the application or that provision the resources will manage it yourself. You will be the one to create the server. If you are using server this time around, you will be the one to create the server. You will be the one to make sure that when any software that is running on that server is obsolete, you'll be the one to upgrade it to the latest version. You will be the one to make sure that you have enough capacity. You will be the one to make sure you have enough storage. So you are managing that application. And also you make sure that your application is working as it should. And you also make sure that it has all the security and is compliant with policies or regulatories. Then there is second way of managing applications in the cloud. And this is what we refer to as cloud provider managed application. When we get to AWS, we're going to be seeing a lot of managed resources. All these managed resources, it's not that you don't have any responsibility with them. You still have some responsibility, but AWS shared those responsibilities with you. So there are some services that AWS manage them. You just go there and use them. So those kind of services are what they refer to as managed services. Then the third one, which is the hybrid-based deployment. The hybrid-based deployment is when you have your resources in the cloud, on-prem, and you also have some resources in the cloud. And you can connect this or integrate the two resources together to function as one. So how do we deploy resources to the cloud if you are using hybrid? To deploy resources to the cloud if you are using hybrid, you have to do a lot of things. The first thing you need to do is networking. You have to make sure that your on-prem servers or on-prem resources can send requests to the cloud or the cloud data center. And the cloud data center too should be able to send requests back to you. So this is one of the good things of first talking about this. When we get to AWS Solution Architects, there are a lot of services that you have to do, a lot of topic under networking. How do you make sure that the resources on-prem are able to communicate with resources in the cloud? And it might not even be the resources on-prem, it might be resources with another cloud data center. Maybe some resources are in Azure or some resources are in GCP. So how would you make sure those resources are able to communicate to the resources that you have in AWS? So those are what you should look out for. Ways to manage applications in the cloud, in hybrid cloud. The same way that you manage application in the on-prem, you also manage application in hybrid. Those applications that are on your own premises, in the client's premises, the client manage them. Why those applications that are on the cloud, both the client and AWS or the client's provider, the cloud provider manage those applications. So, but anyone on-prem, you manage it yourself. Why those ones in the cloud, you can manage it. You might have some that you manage, then AWS might share responsibility with some with you. So the main cloud provider company, there are a lot of cloud providers, a lot of them, more than 100. But the three giants in the industry are the AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. AWS has been the leader for some years now. In fact, it has the combinations, it has the same market share as these two people. It has about more than 34% of the market share. And these two people here, they don't even share up to 24%. So it has the largest market share among all of them. So AWS is going to be our focus. Azure has been very good. GCP has been very good, but Azure is doing better now than GCP. So, but AWS has been their leader for years and it still remains on top. So now we understand the three cloud deployment model: the on-prem or private cloud, we have the public cloud or also cloud, then we have the hybrid, which is both on-prem and in the cloud. So the second topic under this first module is the AWS Cloud Value Proposition, or you say AWS advantage or benefits of AWS. There are multiple benefits of AWS, but AWS based their marketing strategy on these six benefits. The first one is trade fixed expense for variable expense. We're going to look at what this means later. Let's look at them first, all of them. Then the second one is benefits from mass economics of scale. Then we have the cost optimization. You stop guessing capacity, increase speed and agility, then go global in minutes. So what does all this mean? If you are using traditional data center, that means you have to be, you have to invest in a lot of fixed expense. If you go to traditional data center, it's always a building, right? You have to pay for that building. It's either you are doing lease or you own it. You have to pay. The servers that you have there, they are your own. You have to pay for them. Then the connections, networking that you do, you have to pay. Those people that are managing it, maybe you have to buy, maybe like a truck for people that are guiding the place so that they can drive around and see if there's any security issue for those security people. So those are capital expense or fixed expense, and you have to cough out those money ahead before you actually have those before you actually start any business, if you have to use on-prem. But when it comes to cloud, since the data center that the cloud is using is not yours, so there is no fixed expense or capital expense that you have to pay ahead. Now, your cloud expense, your fixed expense will now be what is referred to as variable expense, which are the expense that you just pay when you use. Like when you use a cloud service and AWS charge you maybe $10,000 in a month. So that is what you just pay. Instead of you paying millions ahead before you start making any profits. But if you are using like a small business, instead of you spending thousands of dollars to buy server, if I show you how much they are selling server is the cheapest server you will see is $3,000, and those are not really good server. If it is servers that enterprise company, the enterprise server, you will see servers of 17,000, 70,000 and plus. So instead of you buying a server of 70,000, you don't have to cough out that fixed expense. Rather, what you just need to do is only to go to AWS, spin up a server, use the server at the end of the month, then maybe you may not even pay up to $30 for the whole server that you use, even as a business. As an individual that is just maybe somebody that is just testing, you might not even spend anything in a month. And guess what? You still use the server. But if you are using it for a business, you only have variable expense instead of fixed or capital expense. So that is what AWS means, that instead of spending a lot of money upfront on big computer system and data center without knowing exactly how much you will need it, you can simply pay for the computing power that you use exactly when you use it. Then the second one, benefits from mass economy of scale. I know a lot of you that if you want to buy something, instead of you buying it by yourself, you will look for somebody that will contribute with you so that you can buy in bulk. So this is what AWS just means here. If you are to buy one server by yourself, that server, the company that is selling the server, they may sell it for you at the rate of at a retail price. which is more expensive compared to AWS that has thousands, if not millions of servers. Then if a company sees that, hey, AWS want to buy millions of servers, then instead of selling the million, I mean, let's say this one person, if you are buying one server, let's say they are selling it for you $1,000. I'm just using a small price now. Let's say they are selling a server for you at the rate of $1,000 because you are only buying one. But if you want to buy, let's even say you just want to buy 100 server, they will never sell it for you at the rate of $1,000. Maybe you might buy that server because you are buying a lot. You might buy it at the rate of 500 because they will give you a lot of discounts. So what does that mean? Because AWS buy all these servers in bulk, so indirectly they pass those discounts to their customers. So they pass those discounts to their customers. So that is what it means that you benefit from mass economies of scale. Using cloud computing like AWS can be cheaper than doing it yourself. This is because these cloud services have many customers, allowing them to buy and operate technologies more efficiently and cheaply. So you end up paying less for what you use, just pay for like a taxi, like I explained earlier. So that is economic of scale. And this particular one here, I don't know why AWS like it. You always come out in their cloud practitioner exam. Cost optimization. This is one thing I really love doing, even at work. When you provision resources on-prem, especially if you are working with IT guys, they provision resources like let's say they want to host a web server. They may use like 200 gigabytes of storage to host a very small, and a website that is not even up to the whole file, that is not up to 2 gig. They may use 200 gigabytes of storage to host that server. So what does that mean? If you are putting a server of 2 gig, a file of 2 gig in a storage of 200 gigabytes, that tells you that there is almost 198 free space that is not being used. And guess what? You can't blame them for that because they have to forecast, they have to be prepared, because if they don't do that, tomorrow you might think that you have just few customers. You don't know tomorrow now, maybe somebody help you to advertise your products on social media and thousands of people just come to your website. Then it's going to cause a lot of issue, because if they don't have enough capacity for people that are, maybe your website has to store images, maybe people can submit file or submit form or submit images on your website. So if you don't have enough capacity, then it's going to crash your website or your application. So that is why they always have a lot of space or bandwidth so that they can scale when need occur. But in the cloud, you don't have to do that. You don't have to over provision. We call it over provision. You don't have to over provision, because guess what? There are a lot of services that are monitoring your resources. And when they see that your service, or maybe when they see that there are a lot of customers that might make your applications to break, they will automatically expand or scale themselves. So when those people are not using the services again, they scale down. So that is why they say cloud is elastic. It can grow and it can shrink meaning that when a lot of customers are using, or maybe when you have a lot of users using your application, then your service increase by itself, automatically increase to accommodate those clients or those customers. And when those customers reduce, it shrink back so that you don't waste money. And there are a lot of cost optimization that you can do. One of the cost optimization that I like to do is to make sure that because at the end of every day, we always back up. You back up your resources so that if anything happens, you can roll back or you can get back using the backup that you have. That's what they call backup and recovery. So when you back up your resources, at some point, you have too much. So most of the time, you will see a lot of people, they just keep backing up, and they don't discard the old one. So what I love to do is to always make sure that if I have like 7 days or 14 days or 1 month worth of resources, then I don't need the remaining again, because it's just like you are just making extra copy of what you already have. So you can go to the system and remove all those old backup. And another cost optimization that I've done several times is that AWS, when we get to AWS Solution Architects, we will discuss most of this, is that AWS have some storage that if you use one storage, like the old versions of the storage, it might cost you more than if you use the latest version. So I always try to make sure I use some of the latest versions that they have, because one, they always want people to test it for them. They call it beta. So they want people to test it for them. And if you being the first people to test it, if there's any error, you can surely tell them that, okay, there is an issue with this. So because most companies, they don't like using new things. They don't like change. So they always stick to the old one most of the time. So there are a lot of cost optimization that we're going to be discussing when we get to solution architect. But the value proposition that AWS preaches, this cost optimization, that with their own cloud, you can do a lot of cost optimization. Stop guessing capacity. Now, if let's say, oh, sorry. I didn't optimize it. Let me move this out. So let's say you have these resources before. When you start, you have these resources because you think that a lot of people are going to be using your service, and you buy a bigger server. And true, because you are already in the business and you know your way, you have already done your own assignments. So when you start your business, there are a lot of people coming to your website using your server. So what is going to happen if you don't have, maybe there's another competitor that is producing the same service that you are producing, even at a cheaper price and even at a better quality. So that means customer will shift from your side, they will go to your competitors. So what happened is that your server, this giant server that you have, you are stuck with it. You cannot reduce it, or you can, because it's physical server, there's nothing you can do with it. And let's say all the customers that you have now, they have now turned, all of them left, and you only remain one. So that means this one person will be the one using this giant server. So that is one problem that we have on-prem. But it's a problem that cannot be solved because you have to be prepared. You don't want a client to come to your service or to come to your website or your application and the application is not available for them when they need it. So in order for your application not to be available when customer need it, then you have to guess what's the capacity that you need, especially all these e-commerce company. When they are still on-prem, if they are using their own on-prem, during the holiday period, there is always a lot of buying and selling. So every e-commerce company, they always tend to forecast towards that holiday period. And guess what? It's not a month to the holiday, they will start buying or expanding. They will have started the expansion maybe around August. So August to December, that is like 4 months. So what does that mean is that they get capacity for December at August. And because they get capacity, they have to fund it. They have to cough out money to buy all those servers. So what now happens if by December, the sales is not there? Just like what happened during the COVID period, that a lot of companies has already guessed like, oh, by December, they are going to sell a lot, but COVID now hit and nobody were able to sell anything. So if they have guessed capacity ahead, what it means that if anything happens, they are stuck with that capacity. So that is why it is a value proposition or benefit, and that is one benefit of using cloud, because you don't have to guess anything. If I need a very giant server this night, all I just have to do is to log into my AWS and spin up a server. And that server is going to serve me exactly like the one if I have to buy my own server. So with AWS or with cloud computing, you don't guess capacity. You only, when you are ready to use it, you just go there and use it. So when you use cloud computing, you don't have to guess how much computing power you need before starting a project. You don't have to. Usually, if you guess wrong, you might waste money. Just for example, what I explained now, you have to waste money if you guess wrong. And if you also guess wrong, it might not even be wasting money. What happens if you guess like, oh, 10,000 people will come to my website in December, and you buy resources for 10,000 people, then 100,000 people showed up. Then that is another problem. So at times, it's not about the wasting of money, but at times it's about customer satisfaction. Because if I come to your website today and it's not functioning, I come tomorrow, it's not functioning, then next tomorrow, you may not see me there again. Somebody say, is there a break time? No, I think I said that earlier in the overview section. We only have break time Saturday, Sunday. On Thursday, because it's just 2 hours, we don't have break time. But we might finish before 2 hours. So the next one is speed and agility. Let's take a minute to look at the process of procurement process. If you want to procure a laptop, you want to buy a server. Server is not the same thing. You can get server if you need it, but most of the time, when you want to buy server in an enterprise settings, first, you have to go for the approval. The approval might take you days, if not weeks, to approve it. Then after you get the approval to buy that server, then you place the order. When you place the order, it's not going to come right away. That may take another weeks or months. And when it comes, you still need to set it up. So setting up might take you days. Then once you finish setting up, before you now deploy your applications. So all these, we are talking about 3 to 6 months. Or in a very speedy process, it might take a month. Approval is always taking a lot of time. Approval always take a lot of time. So this might take you weeks or months. But the problem there is, if you have an idea, maybe let's say I'm a developer in a company and I have an idea of a product that I can create for the company. Maybe I'm thinking like, hey, if I develop this product, then we might be able to make millions. Then I share the idea with my boss and he too like it. And guess what? Before we go for approval, so that we can buy all the infrastructure that we need, all the technology that we need for that idea, then 6 months has passed. What is the possibility that I'm only the one that conceived the idea as at that time? Maybe our competitor too has conceived that same idea. Maybe they are watching the same movie I'm watching that I received the idea from, and they have the same idea. So if they are using cloud, they can easily go to the cloud and spin up a server and test it. And if it works, they deploy it. But for me, I have to wait 6 months or 3 months or 2 months. So that is not a good encouragement. So that is one of the problems that developers on site or on-prem normally face. When they want to do something, the process of going through the procurement, go through approval, it's always slow them down. But with cloud now, you can, I don't have, if I have an idea, maybe I want to test an application, maybe if it is working or not, I don't have to first go and meet my boss. I can just go on the AWS account, go to the dev environment and spin up a server there. And if I use that server, if I see that, okay, it actually do what I want it to do, then I can shut it down before I start requesting for approval. But in on-prem, it's not like that, because the kind of server that you need to test that idea, you can't get it. Maybe you don't have it currently in on-prem. You have to order it. So that is why cloud make it easy for people to test different ideas. So in cloud computing, you can quickly get new IT tools with just a click of button. And that is one thing I like about cloud. Cloud is still the same thing like normal computer, but instead of you using your own physical data center now, you are using someone else over the internet. And this person you are using their own, they have a lot of them. So this makes organization and team to work faster and flexible, as it is easier and cheaper to try new things and build stuffs. This is one thing I really love about cloud. For example, now, I was trying to, in my company now, we are trying to deploy an application on Snyk IAC. Snyk IAC is a security tools that whenever you want to deploy a resources, you first want to test that resources, security concepts, to test it to make sure that the resources that you want to deploy in the environment, it's actually not vulnerable. So Snyk IAC can help you to scan that resources and tell you whether that resources is good to go, or if it is not good to go, it's going to stop it. So last year they told me that we are going to start running Snyk IAC this month. Then I just go to the cloud, spin up a server, and deploy a Snyk IAC, and then test it to make sure that I know the process of running the Snyk IAC. But if it is on-prem, then I can't do that. because one, I still need
Sorry,
server.
sorry about that. What did you call it?
Sneak ISA. You don't have to worry about that, because we're still going to discuss it in. It's just a security tools. Let me see. Please don't go and be spending nights looking into this. Don't go and waste sleep. Don't go and lose sleep over this. This is what I mean. Snake ISA. The IA security is for dev and DevOps. So you can test resources very quick. And this is very good thing about cloud, because most of all these companies, they now make it available for you to test their resources in the cloud. Go global in minutes. So when you put your application online, you can put your application online in different parts of the world with just a click of a button. Let's say I have an idea now on how to teach or how to sew Chinese clothes, or how to sew Chinese clothes. That means majority of my clients, they will be in Asia. So if I stay here in USA and I have my server maybe in my office or in a data center that I built here in USA, that means for people that are in China, for them to access my application or for them to access my website, they will be able to access it. But guess what? It's going to be extremely slow because it's far away. That's why most of these companies that you are seeing, maybe you see a company in Asia and you are able to access their application. That application is not in Asia. It's actually very close to you. So if I don't have that kind of resources, that I'm only using one server to host the website for my Chinese clothing e-commerce or services, then if somebody in China wants to visit my website, it's going to be extremely slow for them because it's a very long or far away. So that means the only set of people that I will be targeting for my marketing strategy is the Chinese in America or Chinese that are closer to me. So what happens to that large population in Chinese? That means I won't have access to them because my server cannot serve them. So if I want to have access to those Chinese people, that means I need to move my server closer to them, or maybe go to Chinese and create my business there. So that is a problem with on-prem. But now with cloud, you can actually deliver or deploy a resources in China this night. So if I want to deploy my application, all I just need to do is to pick a data center that is in China or closer to my customers. So I don't have to say because I'm in USA, I have to deploy the resources in USA because I can't use all my services. I have people that are in China that need my services. So I have to deploy that resources in China. So with cloud computing, you can actually deploy a resources in China with just a click of a button. So when you put your application in different parts of the world with just a click of the button, this makes your application faster and more enjoyable for your users. It won't cost much, and that is true. When we open an AWS account, I don't think we can open our AWS account today. Maybe we're going to do it on Saturday. These are the theoretical parts that you need to cover before you open an AWS account. Even solution, you can actually do cloud practitioner without open an AWS account. But you can't do that with Solution Architect, because Cloud Practitioner is just you understanding the service that is available. But I don't think we can open the AWS account today. We might open it on Saturday. But before Saturday, please check the Telegram group. The Telegram, if not before the close of business tomorrow, or before late tomorrow, before like 10 o'clock tomorrow, I will post a step-by-step way of creating an AWS account. And also, if you go to this, website, this is our website, you go under courses, there is also a particular topic dedicated on how to create an AWS account. Yeah, AWS account creation. So go and use this to create your own AWS accounts. Go and use this to create your AWS account. It's a step-by-step guide on how to create AWS account. And I think I also have in a blog, I don't know if I actually completed it, but I think I have a way to create an AWS account. Yeah, how to create an AWS account. Okay, I put it in coming up. Okay, I've not finished it. Yeah, but use that video to create your AWS account. All right, so you go global in minutes. So those are the value proposition or the benefits of AWS Cloud. Let me go back there so that you can see all of them at once. And please try to note this. This is actually an interview. Some people have been asked this before. What are the benefits of AWS? What are the value proposition of an AWS? And even if you want to do the AWS Cloud Practitioner, you will expect or you will see questions under this. The first one is you trade your fixed expense for your variable expense, meaning that you don't have to pay fixed expense. You don't have to pay capital investment. You don't have to pay money upfront. You only now pay for what you use. Then the benefits, you benefit from mass economic of scale, because AWS buy in bulk. They tend to indirectly pass the discount to you rather than you going out there and buy it yourself. When you buy it in retail price, it's more expensive than buying in bulk. And you don't have the money to buy in bulk. So guess what? AWS buy it in bulk and they indirectly pass that discount to you. Then you optimize cost optimization. You don't have to bother yourself on paying huge amounts of money or trying to raise money to do business or to buy resources. Rather, you focus your attention on what really matters to you. You focus your money on what really matters to you, like using your money to make campaign, the marketing campaign. You use your money to make to do research instead of using your money to buy hardware that will just sit down there if you are not using it. So that's cost optimization. Then you have to stop guessing capacity. You don't have to guess how many capacity you need in December when you are still in January. So you can wait till December and just use the service when you are ready to use it, instead of trying to guess how much you are going to need in December. And as if you guess capacity, you might guess wrong and you might guess right, but most of the time you are guessing wrong. And when you guess wrong, you waste a lot of money, and you can either under provision when you guess. When you're under provision, then that means your customer will not be able to use your service. I mean, your service will not be available when your customer need it, but you can as well over provision, which means you are wasting a lot of money. Increase speed and agility, meaning that you just, it's much effective and faster to test a new idea when you are using cloud than when you are using on-prem, because on-prem, you can't think that, oh, I need this thing now and get it, because you have to follow the process of procurement before you can get that resources. Then global in minutes, meaning that if you want your resources in Asia this night, you can do it. But with traditional data center, you can't do that. You still have to go and maybe find partnership with somebody. You have to make partnership with somebody in Asia, or you have to go there by yourself and establish your business there, or buy server, try to rent a warehouse or something and put your server there. So it's not as easy.
Can you go back for a second? No visual, I beg. That picture, yeah, the last one.
Which one?
The last picture. No, the other one. No, the you were talking about the stop casing capacity and all that. The increased speed. Yeah, I forgot the last one.
This one?
No.
This?
No way. You talk about the benefit value of the reposition of the the global. Oh, okay. Thank you.
What are you doing with it? Okay,
Huh?
so if you don't have, if you have not registered here, go and register here. Go under course. When you get under course, this is the current course. So when you start this course, start learning. All the videos that we've covered, all the video from day 1, day 2, you see them here. This is day 1. This is day 2. This is day 2. So day 2, we have one video, second video, then there is question and answer for you to answer for day 2. So if you have not, go and register here, go and register there. So, and you have a question and answer, and today's going to be day 3 and going to be under this. For those presentation and the presentation I'm using, if you go under any of the course, let me leave the quiz. So if you scroll down, you will see the file here. When you click on the file here, you can download the file. So there's no need of trying to jot it down now. You can be jotting down. It's always good to jot down. But if you need this presentation that I'm using, you will surely see it on the video. When I upload the video, I always put the presentation file there as well.
Thanks.
So I don't have that current class in when I open my own the website.
That means you have to go and register.
I registered.
Yeah, I will look into it. I will look into that. All right, let's look at main data center services. When you have a data center, the data center is actually where you put your devices or your IT resources. Like in your data center, you're going to find compute services. Compute services, example of the compute services that we've been talking about is the server. Then there are also other compute services that you might find in the data center on what is called a virtual machine, which is VMware or VM, virtual machine. Don't bother if you don't understand what a virtual machine is. I'm still going to get there. I'm going to explain it when you get to compute. Then also in your data center, you're going to see networking of device, like different device connected together. That's networking. Then inside your data center too, you will see storage device. You will see storage device like file storage, file storage, and image server, file server, image server. You will see a lot of storage device like MySQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle. You will see a lot of all these databases there as well. Then the management and governance, like you'll be auditing, you're going to be writing policy, making sure that you have security controls, making sure that you're following the due diligence, all these things you have, and you have everything in data center. And also you have to ensure that you have security and identity and compliance in data center. All these services are in data center. Now, the problem now, I mean, you might be asking now that, okay, if we are moving all our services, we are discarding this data center that we own and going to cloud. Do we still have all these services when we move to cloud? Absolutely, yes. So when you are in data center, all these services, you are going to be responsible for them by yourself. You are going to be the one that is setting up the compute, setting up the networking, creating the storage, and all of these, they are in the cloud. I mean, they are on-prem. But when you move these services to the cloud, then there are also those services in the cloud. Then you just need to understand the name that that cloud provider give to that service. If you go to Google, Azure, or AWS, or Alibaba, or Oracle, or DigitalOcean, all of these cloud service provider, they have all these services. You just need to know or learn the name that cloud services or that cloud service provider call them. On AWS, this is a symbol for compute. And AWS have a lot of services for compute. We're going to look at some of them in this cloud practitioner. Then the majority of them, we're going to look at them in solution architect. Then we also have networking services. There are a lot of networking services, and majority of them are going to be covered under solution architect and the security engineer. Database, storage, we're going to be looking at three storages. Actually four different storage in AWS. So whatever service that you are currently using on-prem, when you move to cloud, you still have those services, but just learn the name and how the services are provisioned. That is it. So the management and governance, you're going to see that. The database, there are a lot of database on AWS. There are a lot of services for security, identity, and compliance. So now, I hope that if you start this class with us, or even if you don't, just go back and watch that the video before this. So we've covered from the basic of computer, and we keep on building on that. And that is how we're going to go. And that is how you can get from knowing nothing to become somebody in the cloud. So these are not all the services in the cloud. AWS have 200 plus services. AWS have a lot of services in the cloud, but we're just going to look at these are just the main services. They call them the core features or the core services. If you look at my screen now, all of these services, that is what they call the featured content or the featured services, or people name it the main service. Before you get job in the cloud, you have to understand majority of these services, especially these six. This 6 here is a must. And that's even if you go to some AWS training, that is the only thing they will teach, they will train you on, because hardly you will see a company that is using cloud that they are not using these services, especially these 5, these 3, RDS and VPC. All of this, we're still going to understand them. That is why I'm telling you now that these services, you already use them in the cloud. These are their name in the cloud. They have them in the cloud, but when you go to the AWS now provide them to you in form of service. Like when we've been talking about server. When you go to the cloud, here in the data center cloud, the server is categorized under compute. Is categorized under compute, and when you go to the AWS, you're still going to see cloud. Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to go down. I was like, what's going on? Yeah. Okay. So when you get to the AWS, you will see all those services. If you want to create a server on cloud, then you're going to be using under compute. If you want to create a networking, if you want to do networking in AWS, it's going to be under this. And also, for those people that are going to be majored in solution architects, all these diagram, all this icon or image, you need to study them and you need to master them. Although you don't have to cram them, you can just make a Google search. Like if you, when we get to solution architect, this is the application that you're going to be using. You must have this application. Yeah, you must have this application because this is what we're going to be using to draw architectural diagram. You can't do without drawing architectural diagram as a solution architect. It's not hard. Don't freak away. It's not hard. You just need to learn them. And for instance, if you are looking for the compute, you just search for it. So, but you need to understand how to architect, how to draw, because that is the main thing that you're going to be doing as a solution architect. So this is part of what you're going to be doing as a solution architect, just architecting diagram. And any of the service that you need, just search for it here, like compute. Then it's going to give you the shape. Then just copy it and you can move it around. So when we get to solution architect, this is not under cloud practitioner. Cloud practitioner is just main theoretical parts, just understand a particular service and what is used for. But for solution architect, that is when you will now be able to take one service and architect it or integrate it with another service with diagram. All right, that is the end of the first module. So let's just test our knowledge with a very basic, I want participation in this section now. So this is just a knowledge check. The first question says, what is cloud computing? So we have A, B, C, and D. Please read that. I'm taking my breath. So What is the answer to question 1?
B.
I can't hear you.
B. On-demand delivery of IT resources and applications to the internet.
Yeah, so it's going to be using on-demand delivery of IT resources and application through the internet, cloud computing. So we've discussed this several times. So that is correct, B. So what is another name for on-prem deployment?
Private deployment.
That's private deployment. Some people are not talking, I know. Let me check their names. Okay. What are the 3 types of cloud deployment modules?
A.
Yeah, we have the public, we have the private, and we have the hybrid.
A.
Which deployment model involves a cloud infrastructure exclusively used by a single organization?
C.
B,
C.
B.
C. That's private.
Private.
That's when you own it, you use it, and nobody shares it with you. And when we get to solution architect, for the fact that it's cloud, I mean, when there are some cloud that is AWS cloud, is supposed to be public, but as a client, I can actually tell AWS to come and deploy their cloud in my own premises. So that is still private cloud. So they still categorize that as on-prem. So last one, hybrid cloud deployment models are primarily known for what?
C.
C.
Is C. You combine on-premises infrastructure with the cloud. That is hybrid, half and half. All right.
So I have a question here. Is it time for questions?
All right. Yeah. Not really, but you can ask your question now.
Okay, so on this one, you did mention that most companies and organizations kind of prefer to use the hybrid. So is there a benefit of using both hybrid and of using both private and public, since we are aiming to do cloud computing and to cut costs and all those benefits? So why is it that they prefer to still use both on-prem and cloud?
Your speaker do not let me understand your question very well, but I think I understand my part of the question. So let me, you are free to correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to repeat that question to you. Like, what you are saying is that why using both on-prem and the private cloud? Is that the main topic? I mean, the main.
Yes. Why? I mean, according to you, you said most companies prefer to use hybrid, right? So, what is the essence of using hybrid when cloud, using cloud is more beneficial?
Okay, so there are a lot of reasons why company uses hybrid. One, compliance purpose. Like, let me use my own company as an example. There are some resources that you cannot move outside of your on-prem. You can't keep it with other people. You have to be in your own office. So that might be one. Compliance purpose might be one. And secondly, there are some legacy applications that to move them out of their current environment is going to be a lot of problem. So company tends to do one thing. They normally say something like, if it doesn't break, don't fix it. If something does not break, don't fix it. So there are some legacy applications that it's working the way they are. Also, if you say you want to move it to cloud, it's going to cause a lot of issues. And just imagine an application that is earning you millions of dollars every day. And if you move that application maybe it's not going to work for the next 2 days or 3 days, and that means companies are going to lose that. So that might be one reason they don't want to move it, because it's serving them, it's doing what they want them to do. But most of the time, there are some resources that is always better to manage on-prem rather than moving them to the cloud, because you can easily adjust things the way you want, and it might make more economic sense for you to have them on-prem. And also, company tends to not put all their eggs in one basket, because just imagine you just move all your resources to the cloud and something happened. So that means you have to lose all your resources. Although cloud is now robust, that something like that cannot happen anymore. When we get to AWS Solution Architect, we're going to be talking about S3 durability, that S3 AWS assured you that if you store your data with them, they give you guarantee of 99.999999 assurance that they're going to have your data. That is almost 100% that your data, anytime you need it, you get it. But despite that, it's just promise. So company tends to like not focus all their eggs in one basket. And also, the purpose of hybrid does not necessarily mean that it is actually on your own premises. It can be you are using Azure Cloud and you are using AWS. That is still categorized as hybrid. Also, you might have, like I said earlier, that you might have a service that is a cloud service that is deployed on your own premises. Is a cloud service deployed on your own premises, and then you are using public service as well. That is still categorized as hybrid. But hybrid is the best because you manage half an hour. So there's a lot of reason company tends to prefer hybrid, and I can assure you 99% of company out there, one way or the other, they still have some resources that they manage in their own premises. Last question. Which is a financial advantage of cloud compute?
The as you go pricing models.
That means you pay as you go. That's that B. All right, I think that is all. That is the end of module 1. Any questions on that? Our objective on module 1, let's quickly look at that. Do we cover the objective on module 1? Sorry. Okay. So now, I believe anybody in this class, they can now explain the 3 types of cloud deployment modules, and they can explain some advantages or benefits of cloud computing. Yes or no?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking for who to call. Well, from next week, I'll be calling people. All right. So what's the time? Okay, I think the next one shouldn't take me. I don't want to rush it, but let me see. Okay, that's the end of module 1.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to like Sorry, I was thinking if you say hybrid also has to do with having maybe Azure and then also having AWS. And most companies will always have hybrid as part of the servers on cloud and then some on ground. Do you think that there's a necessity to learn more than one cloud and not have to just be on just the AWS? Because most interview, they would also want to find out if you know a little bit about Azure, especially in production and the rest. Do you think it's important to try and learn it as well?
Well, I've not learned Azure. I've quit my job for some time, and the reason why I actually when I just joined, I wanted to actually learn Azure, but the guy I was working with then, it's very, very good in AWS, and he told me that he can never learn Azure. He can never learn another cloud, and I just stick to that too, because there is too much job in AWS that I will not be disturbing myself to go and learn another one. And this is it. If you know one, you know all. Do you know that? If you know
The times are different, and that's why sometimes I try to like talk to someone that is doing Azure, and when they're calling some of the things, like they have this VPN, they have whatever, some words that the guy is saying, and then I try to like find out, okay, what is this one in AWS? And yes, I know if you know one, you can actually transfer it to the other one, but sometimes it's difficult to really place which is which sometimes.
Can I chip in?
Yeah.
Can I chip in?
Yeah.
Like in terms of AWS and Azure, sometimes you have to be specific when you're looking for a job, because the kind of job you apply for determines what you get. Like currently, I'm a BI developer, Power BI developer to be precise. When I was looking for a job, I was putting on BI developer. And when I get job interview, all I get is people asking me from different field, from Python, from different things that I do not even have knowledge of. But when I narrow down my job search to Power BI developer, all the jobs I applied for was on that role, and all the questions that I was asked was specifically for that job. So sometimes you need to know the kind of jobs you are applying for. They might ask you so many things that you don't, you think that you start feeling like you're dumb. You don't know anything, but it's not because they're out of your scope. You cannot know it all.
Sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks. That actually makes sense. So some people, they just want to hire one person and use it for like 200 things. So it's there. But in terms of Azure, if you have the time, you can learn it. That is fine. But there are a lot of jobs out there that you can get without doing Azure. And if I were you, if I actually want to learn Azure, you don't have to spend too much of your time go and learn the full package. You can just pick the main resources. Like when you're talking about the VPN, do you know that VPN in Azure is VPC in AWS? So you just need to understand the name. And when you are learning anything cloud, don't learn that cloud specifically, learn the concept. If you learn the concept, you can apply the concept anywhere. The same way we configure VPC in AWS. I don't know about Azure, but it's going to be the same way. When I was talking to somebody at work and he's talking about GCP projects, GCP project is AWS account. And when talking about organizational unit in AWS, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, don't freak out. We're going to get there. When it's talking about organization in AWS, and it's actually folders in GCP. So this thing is just the name that is different. It's just the name. So don't waste your time and go and be learning something like what's her name? Cheetah, right? Chitachi, sorry. Like Chitachi said that just be focused. limit down your resume to particularly what you are looking for. I understand it that when people are looking for a job, they just submit resume everywhere. I get it, you need job. But at times, it's always good to be more precise and be more focused. All right, I think we will cover this one in our next class. So I will just call it a day now because it's 9 o'clock, almost 9 o'clock already. So in our next class, we just start from module 2. And also, please make sure you open your AWS account before the next class. Watch that video, and if I have time tomorrow, I'm not really sure, but I will try to put out a step-by-step guide. I think I actually have a step-by-step guide. I will just look for it. I will post it, and if I don't, I will try anytime tomorrow. Hopefully, I will post it. But if you don't see anything from me by afternoon, please go to that video. I also the one that did the video, and it's still a step-by-step guide as well. So use that to create your AWS account. These days, AWS, they are kind of strict with their account creation. If you create an account, maybe you have an account before and you use the account, you don't pay, you close it, and you're trying to use another one. If they dictate your name or your address that is still the same thing, they will keep on blocking the new account that you create. So you need to watch out for that as well. So when we meet on Saturday, we will complete and we continue from volume 2, module 2, global infrastructure and reliability. Any
So
question?
how would you create a safe one if they keep using?
No, if you don't have any account before, if you are creating it for the first time, you don't have anything to worry about. The kind of people that AWS are targeting, like the kind of person like me that I have created, I can't count how many accounts I've created. So at times, another email, if I want to try one of my emails, say you have used this email before, you have used this account before. So if you have maybe just have 1 or 2, they don't bother about you.
But can't you reuse the one you already opened before?
Yeah, you can use that.
You're not owing. If you're owing, they will take the money from you.
Yeah. So just make sure that when you create an account these days, try to remove those resources immediately you finish. So don't leave the resources. If you don't leave the resources, then you can use one account for years. All right.
Yeah, I have a quick question. With the Telegram, like, what name should I search on? I just downloaded the app. What name should I search to find the group for the Telegram?
Oh, you don't have to search. Don't worry. I'll search for you.
Okay.
Mr. Amy, don't forget to check on my own that I cannot see the new class.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll put it here. So
Okay.
yeah, I will look into that. So let's just, do you guys think we should just quickly do answer to that question? Hello, can you guys hear me?
What question?
Yeah, my system is kind of hanging. I don't know why. Okay, I'm back. All right, I was thinking that if we can Do you guys want me to? Well, I think you guys just go and register for it and do it. I was thinking maybe we should solve this question that I put here. Should we do this or you do it on your own?
Why don't we do it and maybe when we come to class we can go over.
Oh, I can't hear you. Your speaker is. All right. I think people want to go and sleep. All right, let's do this next class. If you guys have any issue, let me know. I always see those people that do it, so and you can attempt it as many as possible.
Okay.
All right, thank you guys. Let's see on Saturday, 9 to 12 Central.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, bye.